Coach Pat Knight has decided he wants to coach the purest form of high-level basketball. He joins the Marian Knights as the head men's basketball coach. We're going to speak to the new head men's basketball coach, Marian University, Pat Knight. Cascade Hoops Talk starts right now. Hey, today we have Pat Knight. He's the new head men's basketball coach, Marian University. Of course, everybody knows he's the son of the late Bob Knight. He's coached at the highest levels of college basketball, and for the last 10 years, he has scouted for the NBA. He wants to get back to coaching. He wants to coach what he calls the purest form of basketball. He's taken the job, an NAI job, not as a stepping stone, but he wants to retire at Marian. You're going to hear his story. He's a really nice guy. He's definitely an open book. He was really easy to talk to. I think you're going to enjoy it, and he's a great addition to the NAI men's basketball coaching family. Let's take a listen to Pat Knight, Marian Knights. Cascade Hoops Talk, Billy D. Hey, I got Pat Knight. He's the new head men's basketball coach of the Marian Knights there in the Crossroads. Welcome, Coach. Thank you for taking the time.
No, it's my pleasure. It's always good to take a break from trying to figure out your team.
Oh, this is a busy, crazy time for you, I bet, right now, huh?
Yeah, we actually, I'll tell you what's crazy. Like NAIA, you really don't have any rules per se. And so, but we do have one rule. You can't work with your team until when school starts till like September 23rd. And so I was really looking forward. I thought, not having many rules. I was all prepared right when school started to start practice. And then I was told like the first day, no, Coach, you can't even be in the gym. And so I'm the worst at just sitting around because that's why I have really good assistant. I don't like doing the small stuff, the budget, the travel, all that. I'm here for the war, not the battles. And so we finally got started, last week. And so, yeah, I'm in a lot better frame of mind now that I can work with these guys, but it was tough just sitting there for a month while they strength and condition, had open gym, but we couldn't be in there. And so, yeah, now finally we're busy and the fun part starts now.
Hey, Coach, how good did that feel to get in the gym with the guys after, what's it been, 10 years? You've been scouting?
Yeah, 10 years. It felt like, now don't get me wrong, I love scouting. Pacers were great, but you just feel alive. Because you have skin in the game, and just being around the players, working with the players, being around my staff. Because the only probably negative about scouting, it can be lonely. You're traveling by yourself and 3 to 5 games a week, and you'll see other scouts at games, but it's not like hanging out with your own staff in the office. Being with the kids in practice, and so. That's the part, I miss the most, just being around a team setting. And so, yeah, for me, it's just like being born again. I mean, it's just been the energy and everything's just been great.
This is probably a dumb question, but as a scout, are you primarily at college games?
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting for myself. So I actually did both. So in scouting, you have your college scouts and you have your pro scouts. So the college scouts, you will go to all college games, getting ready for the draft, and looking for players for your G League. Now the pro scouting, you're going to all pro games, and you're involved with all the free agents and the trading scenarios.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I actually was fortunate enough to do both. So my first 3 years, I was the West Coast. I lived in Vegas for 10 years. I was a West Coast college scout. I had Texas over to California. Then in between, for 4 years, I was actually the pro scout in charge of the Western Conference. So I was involved with all the free agents and the trades. And then my last 3 years, I went back to being the West Coast college scout. So not many guys get to do both. So I actually got to do both of the scouting jobs while I was with the Pacers for 10 years.
That sounds like it was pretty interesting, huh? You were always on the go at least.
Yeah, I mean, 3 to 5 games a week, and not just games. for the college part, we go to practices starting in October. Anybody that has a potential first or second rounder, I probably average going to 15 to 18 practices starting in October. And so it was kind of neat just seeing how other guys ran practice and just seeing players in that environment. And so from a basketball junkie, it's great, but the only thing that's missing is the competition part.
Yeah.
And that's the part, I miss the most.
So I want to talk about how you got to Marian. I think that's a huge story. You have a family relationship with Steve Downing. He's the athletic director at Marian. He played for your dad, Bob Knight, at IU, one of his early teams, I believe.
Well, he's actually his first All-American in 73.
Okay.
So he's even more important. When you have that first All-American, that guy is always a little special.
You guys have always, or that your family, he's kind of, I think I heard you describe him as family.
Yeah, so when, Steve was first round pick of the Celtics, won a ring with them, and then got injured. And so my dad brought him back to IU, to go back to school, get a master's, and he got a job in the athletic department. And so Steve's pretty much been around our family, except for those few years with the Celtics, pretty much my entire life. And he was in charge of basketball while we were at Indiana. And then when we went down to Texas Tech, he followed us down there in the athletic department as assistant AD in charge of basketball down at Tech. And then from Texas Tech is when he left and got the Marian job. And so Steve, the funny thing is, that's who I sat by on the bench when I started going to games when I was like 7 years old. And I'd sit at the end of the bench with Steve. And so Steve's just been family. I mean, that's one of those guys, growing up with as a kid. He's always been around. And that's why I call him family. I mean, he's one of the first
so cool
players that I can remember, just growing up.
That's a neat story. So you were seeing a lot of him. A lot of people know your dad went through dementia. A lot of us have experienced that. And Steve was around a lot, and that's where you first started. You knew he was at Marian, and you really didn't know anything about NAI or NAI basketball, did you? Till you started talking to him?
No, my dad would go to some games, when the dementia went bad, and we'd talk about just, the basketball and everything. But I just, growing up, everything was Division I. And I just, I'm trying to think, I've had some guys coach Division III and Division II, but I still didn't pay much attention to it. And so then, Steve coming down, he was coming down a lot to check on my dad when they moved back to Bloomington like 5-6 years ago. And so, I just start talking to him about what it was like, being an athletic director at that level and everything. And, and like you and I were talking before the interview started, it's probably the purest form left of sports, that you don't, some are trying to do the NIL deal, but I mean, you can't come close to what is going on in the NCAA. But it's really, it's the last, Division II, Division III, NAI. It's really the last of the student athletes that are, how I was brought up, that you're actually there to get an education and then play basketball or play baseball, football, whatever sport it may be. And that's the thing that appealed to me, being around all these, big schools the last 10 years scouting, and I saw the change from the NIL and just how the mess it's become. I always had in the back of my mind, if I ever got back into it, it'd have to be a small school situation, and it had to be in Indiana. I wanted to get back to the state of Indiana where they cared about basketball. It's home. And just talking to Steve the last, few years when he'd come down and see my dad, it just kind of piqued my curiosity. And the Crossroad Leagues, of course, I grew up knowing all those teams. I mean, my dad used those team names at his camps, all the time. That was some of the team names. But then I started paying more attention to it, over the years because of Steve talking about it. And it wasn't just that. I checked to see how his football team was doing. And then this past year, right before my dad passed, it's probably in September, he came down and we were just talking, and, all his coaches have moved on. They've done well and moved on in every sport. And I thought, we were kind of joking around. I was like, shoot, if your men's coach ever moves on, I'd probably come out of retirement, for a job like that. And he looked at me, he's like, why would you leave the NBA to come coach at a school like Marian? And then I told him, I was like, Steve, look, and it's, I was like, it's personal, Steve. It's like, it's not like, it's pretty simple. I was like, I'm not happy with the way my career ended. I was never able to build a program. And two, obviously, my dad's going to not be along for long. It'd give me one more opportunity to pass along all the things he taught us and to honor him. And so that was kind of it, and I didn't think, never thought really the situation would open up. And then when it did, it was crazy, and it just worked out. And so it's kind of fortunate, but it was kind of just one of those off the cuff deals, and it ended up working out. The coach before me ended up going over to UIndy where he played, and the job opened up. And because I never thought it'd open up. I mean, because coach before me had done well, won a lot of games, and I was kind of like, why would he leave that job? But then I found out he played at UND. He's going back to his alma mater, so it made sense. But honestly, I never thought the job would open up. I was just hopeful, that a situation like that. But then, Taylor opened up in that league, but then Marian had opened up, and so I was just fortunate. It was just one of those deals, and that's the only thing that got me back was it was in that league. It's in Indiana. It's in Indianapolis. And then, the funny thing is people don't know this. Steve actually was interested in the Indiana State athletic director's job a long time ago when we first few years at Texas Tech, and he had actually talked to me if it worked out about coming and working for him and being his coach at Indiana State. And so it's kind of funny how things come around that, that situation didn't work out, that all of a sudden now I do end up getting to work for him.
It's just crazy how that worked out, and the connections. A lot of people say, oh, Pat Knight's at Marian now. That's a cool deal. I wonder how they got him. And, I dug around and I found that backstory, and I just found it amazing. You and I both talked about the NAI. I'm an old guy. I followed NAI basketball my whole life. And what's kept me with it is I call it the family feel, right? You growing up just like you, I met all the players. My dad would take me up to the gym, and to me, they were like, Portland Trailblazers,
Oh yeah. That's your team. You didn't, you didn't care about the pros.
Exactly.
Like every number I had growing up in boys club, and, the number I choose was an IU player. It won Dr. J. It won, Larry Bird or Magic. It was because it was my favorite IU player at the time.
Yeah. But I found that the small college game is the only place where you can get to know you can just go up there, be a fan. You can get to know the players, their families, their brothers, their sisters. You get to know the coaching staff, easy to travel with them. And it's just, like you said, it's just a pure form of basketball. Pat, you don't know how many, I meet so many student athletes doing this. I interview guys after the game and stuff. And, these guys are going on to be engineers and doctors and psychiatrists, and they're 3.8, 3.9 students, and they're playing basketball or some other, softball or something at a high level. They're just so impressive. And then when I travel to different campuses, almost every time when I talk to administrators or professors there, universally, the student athletes are the best students on campus, which, as you and I know, say 20 years ago wasn't the case.
Oh, no. And it's really not the case now at the bigger schools. I mean, they're not there for school. They're hired guns, and they're there to play and get to the next level. And that's why it was kind of interesting for us from a scouting standpoint. Actually, one of the most important people we called were the academic advisors, because we actually wanted to see what guys actually went to class, and took it serious, even though they're probably going to go pro in a year or two. But that just, and the guys that actually did show an interest in academics, that's the type of guy we wanted with the Pacers. Being in a small market, we wanted a guy that took care of business, not just on the floor, but off the floor. But I tell you what, there's a lot of them, though. When I called him, oh, no, he doesn't go to class, or he doesn't even know what his major is. He's going to be out of here. And then, of course, when that second semester comes, for people that don't know the rules, they have to stay eligible that first semester to play the second semester. But if they're going pro, most of them just quit going to class that second semester. And then with COVID, it's interesting, online stuff. Kids don't even go to class. And that's the thing at Marian. There's none of that. You go to class. It's face to face. And that, I had a recruit on campus yesterday talking to the dad and the brother. I was like, that's the thing here at these smaller schools. There's not going to be online. He's going to learn how to interact with people. He's going to learn how to get people skills. So when he gets out in the real world, he won't fail. And like you said, it's just a different atmosphere. Family atmosphere. It's not just my sport. All the coaches were actually in the same hallway, so I see the soccer coach, tennis coach, volleyball coach, every day, football coaches. And you just don't have that at a bigger school. It's become a factory or, Fortune 500 company, really. It's not personal. It's not it. And it's just, to me, that's not what I wanted, anymore. I've been there, done it. And this has just been, to me, it's just been fun. That's the bottom line I can tell you. It's just been fun just being around. I feel like Normandale and Hoosiers, just that small time atmosphere, And so it's just been like, you asked me what the difference is. I just feel you get energy from being on a campus. We had our first home football game the other
Marian
week.
has a great football program.
Oh, they're ranked, I think, 4th right now. It was sold out. We had tailgate spot for the men's basketball, women's basketball, softball coach. Everybody's grilling. It's just a great, just like you said, family atmosphere. It's not a big corporation. It is, they care about their student. Our president, you can, honest God, you can email him and he'll email you back. And you don't get that, these big time Power 5 type schools.
The first words when you did your press conference there at Marian, your first words is "it's good to be back," and then you almost lost it. How much does that mean to get back to Indiana?
Oh, it's huge. This is where I grew up. This is family. And being away, being in Texas for all those years coaching, which is a football state, and you just, you don't appreciate anything really, especially when you're young and until something's taken away from you. And then you realize what you had. And that's pretty much what happened to me, being in Texas coaching and just the basketball. And then I've run into people I haven't seen in 20, 30 years, teammates I haven't, seen in a while, coaches, that I played against or coached me. And just the people, there's nothing better than Midwest people. And it was kind of, and I knew something could trigger me during the press conference, but you don't know. But it was just the whole deal, just being back, and it was just great, And it wasn't sadness; it was joy, just being able to come back here and do something I love in a state I love and in a great city.
So this is probably going to be a dumb question, but what's your reception been like at Marian on campus?
Oh, it's great. The students, because I'm around. I make sure I'm around, and not one of those coaches that, I go to shoot. I was ball boy at the women's soccer game 2 weeks ago.
Good job.
I try,
I love it.
So, I was just at volleyball the other night, been to rugby, so I just want them to know, because I think guys get a bad reputation, and it's also their own fault because sometimes they'll use a job like this. They've been up where I've been, at a big time school. They come down here, they're trying to resurrect themselves to get back up there. And I told them, I was like, this is not my plan. My plan's to retire. I've been up there. I don't need that. I was like, I just want to build something and leave something, a legacy behind here. But I still think it's hard for some of them. It's hard to believe. Yeah. And I still get asked, why would you leave the NBA to come here? And I just tell people, don't read too much into it. I'm pretty much a black and white guy. There's no gray area. It was just personal. And that's all you need to know. And I'm here for the long haul, because I get that from the parents, that I'm recruiting and even the kids that I'm recruiting. And I tell them I'll be here longer than you are. I can guarantee you that. It's just been, it's been a great situation. And what people understand, our campus is beautiful. Our president's been unbelievable, and all the different, like the engineering school, the nursing school, medical school, everything he's added, and they just keep building. We're a lot, because of COVID, if you look around, a lot of small schools have shut down and on around, especially at the NAI level, Division II, Division III. But we're expanding. Like they were worried this year, about having enough dorm space, which is a great problem to have. And so the good thing is they're really expanding this university. And we've actually been offered to go Division One, a couple conferences, but I think they're taking it slow just because no one knows the landscape.
Yeah.
We just know it's going to get worse with the NIL at the NCAA level. And so, but they got things going in the right direction for the future.
Coach, I want to ask you about your team. Before we get to that, when somebody talks about your team, what words or phrases that you hear are like, oh, yeah, that's who we want to be?
Yeah, so I told our guys, number one, you got to play hard. I do not want one of my teams get done and whoever we played, they just don't play hard. Or the fans, they don't play hard. And to me, you want to be known as a team that plays hard because that can make up for a lot of mistakes. Mm-hmm. And that's the number one thing I try to instill in them is the playing hard part. I mean, if you don't have that, I don't care how smart you are, how talented, you're going to get beat on a regular basis. And so just try, and that's both ends of the floor. So, and then the other part is we've got to defend. I love offense with our motion offense, and I want to be known for that. But if you look at any champion at any level, any sport, you have to be able to defend. And that's one of the things trying to get across to them. Probably right now, 3/4 of our practices are spent on defense. And so just trying to get them to get a defensive mindset. The bottom line is my dad always said, you just want to be a team that's hard to play against and plays hard and hard to play against. And that's it. But, and so for me, what makes teams uncomfortable on the defensive end, it's to me, hard defense, man-to-man, and also to be able to play zone, do some pressing, anything that changes up the momentum. And then from our offensive standpoint, our cutting and screening. No one wants to guard that. But the bottom line, play hard and just make other teams uncomfortable at both ends.
Coach, you have a limited roster up, but you've got gut. Well, I'm assuming there's more to come. I think you got 5 guys on there.
No, we have 14 on the roster. That's another thing. Small school, it takes some time. You got one person doing all the stuff, on the internet. And so, I actually have 14. So I have 7 new guys coming in. So we have 14 on the roster. But the funny thing is, really, the only guys we're talking about right now are the guys that you see that are the returning players, right? Because actually we scrimmaged yesterday. My freshmen played like freshmen. So I'm not going to give them any props right now until they learn. But the returners, though, I was pretty pleased yesterday because we scrimmage every third day. So that was our first scrimmage. But the returners, I've been pleased with, because we got 7 of the kids to return when I got the job. And they've been really good. And so I'm pleased with them. But yeah, we do have 14, just so you know that. I got 7 newcomers coming in.
I thought maybe you were going to play Ralph Miller Iron Man basketball.
Well, I kept it. But really, if you look at a lot of NAI rosters, they have JVs or, schools want you. They don't understand. We have scholarships, but they're not considered scholarships. It's more of a salary cap. The full rides I get, they're full scholarships, but they more or less care about the number you offered. So it costs this year $54,000 to go to our school, $40,000 for tuition, and then $15,000 for room and food. Mm-hmm. And so when I give a kid a full ride, all the school cares about, well, you gave him $54,000. So it's more like a salary cap situation. And so what people don't realize, all our kids are high academics. They come with these scholarships that the schools get to use and everything, and it doesn't cost them as much. So they would love it if I had 25 kids because the academic money that comes in from the scholarships that they've earned and high school and everything. But I am kind of keeping it small when it comes to NAI because I told them I'm not going to have 18. I'm not going to have 20. That's just going to cause problems. Right. And 14 is probably be my limit. I'd really like to have 12, but we got it at 14.
Yeah, as soon as you try to limit it, then you have injuries and sickness and.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've seen that. Yeah. So you got to be careful. Like you said, you don't want to go too low, but you don't want to go too high. And so, I talked to my staff, and so we thought 14, maybe 15 in the long, years to come. But you just got to be careful. And because we talked about that too, what, okay, let's keep it small to 12. Well, we don't have to because, or 13, we don't have the NCAA regulations. We can get a little more. And then we start talking like you did. It always happens because it's wintertime, injuries, sicknesses. And so we thought 14 or 15 would be the best. So that's where we're at. We're actually at 14. And but hopefully the next couple of weeks as football gets going, our our assistant AD in charge of all our promotion stuff, he'll get the full roster up there.
So you got Gus Etchison. He just tore it up last year. He had a monster year. He's a senior this year, 5'11" guy out of Cicero. Talk about his game. 23 points a game last year, 4 assists, 3 rebounds.
He's a bucket getter. That's what he is. I mean, he can score inside, outside, just can light it up. And, he's got a gift. To me, you have your playmakers, you have your bucket getters, you have your shooters, and then you pretty much have your hybrids at this level. But bucket getters are hard to find because they can score off balance, hit bad shots, hit good shots. I mean, it's pretty much, for people to follow, it'd be like, a Steph Curry type player. He's dangerous. Any given night he could drop 30 on you. Absolutely. And those guys are hard to come by. You can find shooters, you can find the playmakers, but a bucket getter are pretty special, and that's what he is. And he started out at Western Michigan, then came down to us, and we're working on actually getting him a medical red shirt from his time at Western Michigan. And if he has the year like he did last year, that just means he had a good year. That means we should have a pretty good year. I won't be surprised if he gets that medical red shirt. He's back at Division I, for his final year, which is great. And that's what I'm trying to get. Like, we're talking about how things have evolved. I think you have to adapt. And so I've actually talked to my administration, like the transfer portal has really hurt these kids in high school because guys don't want to develop people anymore. And I get it. Shoot, I mean, if you can get a 22, 23-year-old from the transfer portal, he's going to be prepared to compete and win you more games than, say, an 18-year-old. And so the thing we're finding out now, since I got the job, there's a lot of kids that, like I would have taken when I was at Lamar, small Division I, but they're getting overlooked because the transfer portal. And so one of the things I'm trying to do is get those type of kids here. And, hey, you play well for me, I'll develop you. And if you have a chance to go Division I and make some money, I'll help you. But I just have to know in my mind that means I may have to replace more guys every year than you typically would. But I think you have to embrace it because that's what's starting to happen. They're starting to realize how good the NAIA is, how good the Crossroads Leagues is. And, we had a couple kids we lost last year from the league that went Division I. And Gus actually had a chance to do it, but he wanted to play a year with his brother. And not many kids would have done that. So that kind of shows you the type of kid he is. But I told him, I'll help him any way I can to fulfill his dream of getting up to Division I for his final year. But he's special, I'll tell you that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to having him. I just got to get him to defend, though. But he's a typical scorer, though. He's not going to be a great defender. Like my dad said, like with Alford and his guys, just give me the effort. I get it. Because I want you to do so much at the other end. So just give me a little bit of effort. And so that's the thing we're working on him is on the defensive end because he's pretty much got everything going for him from an offensive end. I think our offense will help him with the screens we run and getting him to learn to be a screener because people don't realize screeners get open more than cutters. And so, but yeah, I mean, he's probably our main guy that we're looking at right now. And he's excited. And I think our fans are really going to enjoy watching him play again and also playing a different system, changing up the defenses, pushing the ball up more than they did in the past. And he fits perfectly for what we're trying to get done here.
Yeah, I want to touch on another senior, Jackson Ames, 6'11" guy out of Batavia, Ohio, 64% from the field, 6 rebounds. You really need some beef in the middle nowadays. How's he look so far?
He looks good, but then the beef in the middle, I disagree with from a standpoint. The game is going small.
Ah, okay.
So for me, 6'7", 6'8", that's where I think we can be because we're going to push it up. Changing the defenses hurts if you got beef in the middle, but a lot of teams don't want to do that. They want to stick to man-to-man, but I have no problem junking it up, adding zones. But the funny thing is, if you watch Jackson on tape, the poor kid, he was the only guy that screamed. Nobody screamed but Jackson. And so that's kind of been different for our smaller players. I make them scream. Everybody has to scream. So this is the first time Jackson had somebody scream for him.
Wow. Okay.
And so I think you can expect more from him because we're going to utilize him totally different. I mean, he's still going to be a screener. He's going to be in the middle, but he has a nice shot out to 15. And then our motion offense, we have to have guys. You don't have to be a three-point shooter, but you at least have to, be able to shoot out to 15. And so I think it'll be different for Jackson this year because it's funny when we first started working out in the spring when I got the job, I was like, now guys, you got to understand, we all do the same shooting drills. I don't break down, hey, bigs go down there, work around the bucket, smalls down here. I was like, bigs, you're going to learn to shoot from outside, and guards, you're going to learn how to have a post game. And so I think he really enjoyed that, and we saw him. I mean, it was probably the first time he was allowed to shoot from outside when we started playing our, 5-on-5 games. And so I think people will be surprised that they're going to see a different Jackson, because we're going to allow him to shoot from outside. He's going to, he can pass from outside. I mean, if you just watch their games from last year, he was pretty much a screener and then, go down the block. And he didn't get a lot on the block. They kind of lived and died by the three last year. And we want to get more easy buckets. And so I'm really looking forward to having him, and a great personality. I mean, he's one of our leaders. I mean, he's got great energy. And so I think he'll be a big reason for our success, but it'll be different. I think people will be shocked how much different his play is this year than just being a screener and then maybe getting the ball point blank around the bucket.
So just listening to you talk, it sounds like you like a lot of motion and action on the offensive end, and then you want to be unpredictable at the defensive end. Yeah,
and I've studied all these teams and everything, and there's some mistakes I made, and it was stuff my dad and I talked about. I mean, no one would believe me, but when my dad actually did the first year of ESPN, he called me up and was like, "You aren't going to believe me, but I actually, after watching all these games, would have played more zone." He was like, "It just takes teams out of the rhythm." And then, I've taken notes over these 10 years, just things that bothered teams and got them out of the rhythm. But I was always raised just man-to-man. It didn't matter. You just straight man-to-man. And if they got on a roll, you just took it. Nah, not anymore. I talked to my staff, and I've talked to the team, and, you've got to be able to change it up. And the things I saw really these last couple of years in college basketball, I took notes on what presses stop guys, what zones, and you just got to be able to, not that you have to rely on it all the time, but you want to have it in your arsenal, so if a team gets on a run, you got to be able to slow them down. But I was never that way. I mean, it was straight man-to-man. My dad was that way, but that's the thing I kind of learned over these years. And he and I would talk about it, just changing up the defense, because you just want to, bottom line, you just want to make them uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And we'd talk what made us uncomfortable. When we got on a roll against a team, we're cutting them up and everything. All of a sudden they go to the zone because kids naturally want to stand, put the ball over their head. Or if a team presses you a little bit, it doesn't even have to be a trapping press. Nowadays, because with the shot clock, I mean, if you take 5 to 8 seconds off that shot clock, now you make the offensive team in a rush. That makes them uncomfortable. And so that's kind of the new things for me, talking to my staff, just at both ends, and especially on the defense, because our motion will make anybody uncomfortable because everybody's now all anybody runs now, these pro sets, a lot of ball screens. I think offenses have just gotten awful over the years because everyone tries to emulate the NBA. Well, if you have Steph Curry or Tyrese Halliburton, those offenses work where you got 2 guys playing and 3 guys standing. But if you don't, you might want to have some action on the weak side and having all 5 guys involved. So for me, the biggest difference is going to just how we approach everything defensively.
So I assuming you're at the point right now where everything's wide open, everybody's got to earn a spot.
Oh yeah. I told them I don't care what you did last year. Obviously, I know what you guys did last year because I've studied the tapes and everything, but it is a clean slate, gentlemen. There is no position promise. That's what I tell the recruits too. Because, kids will ask, hey, where do you see me next year? I don't know. You got to prove to me what you can do, And that was, we lost some kids that didn't want to, that left, that were on the team before. And I think some of it was because I wouldn't promise them anything. I had kids, well, what's the plan, coach? Well, the plan is you got to prove to me you can play. That's the plan. Yeah, it's wide open. And that's why, and we make everything competitive. Every drill, there's a loser, winner, loser. And I think the kids like that. And it keeps kids on their toes. That's how my dad was. If you had a bad week in practice, he had no problem sitting you on the bench. And kids feel that. You've been around the game. Kids know, hey, Joe Smith there. God, he was awful in practice, but coach's still going to start him. So Why should I give the effort?
Yep.
And if you read about the greats, I've been, what Hallball did, Michigan, Stanford, San Diego, the 49ers, Coach Carroll when he was at, USC, the Seahawks. Everything you read about is the competition, competing, keeping stats so kids know how they're doing. And that's why we scrimmage every third day. Like we have stats to show the guys today because we took yesterday off, how good some of them were and how bad some of them were. And my dad always did that. He kept stats for the whole season. And so if somebody, you always, every once in a while, you get the parents want to come in, have a meeting, why isn't little Johnny playing? And my dad would be, he'd get the stats for the whole, because I think we pretty much kept stats, anything 4-on-4 above in practice. So he'd call down the manager, hey, give me all stats total up to today. And it'd be funny. So the parents would be all fired up, trying to, get little Johnny playing time. And all of a sudden you'd show them the stats, and coach would be like, okay, little Johnny's last at 3-point field goal percentage, leads us in turnovers. And by the time the meeting was over, the parents were mad at little Johnny because the little Johnny wasn't playing well. And they had no excuse, when you keep track of, stats and compete in practice. But to me, that's the way it should be, because then everybody realizes they prove they can play, they're going to play.
So Pat,
if they're not,
I got to ask you a question. Are you telling me that college parents would come and ask about little Johnny?
Every once in a while, it wasn't every year, but we'd get, and I think my dad would have gotten more, but honestly, I think, they're probably scared.
They're scared of him.
But we'd get one every year or so, you'd get that one. And
wow!
And he had the proof because he was big on that. And that's what you do during the year when he calls each in, just hey, and he'd have them in front of him. And you'd have a copy. Hey, you need to get a little better at this. You're doing good here. And so you always knew where you stood.
Sure. Yeah.
But you always get those kids that think, wow, I should be playing above so and so. Well, if you keep track of everything, you have the proof. But it was always funny. I'd always get a kick. The other assistants, we'd sit there and look at the expression, especially on the dad's face when he started realizing little Johnny wasn't doing very well in practice.
And that's when they wish they were a little more scared before they walked in, and they wish they would have changed their mind.
You'd hear the dad, why the heck did you have us come in here? That was embarrassing. You got to pick it up, But then sometimes it was great because that kid would buy in and all of a sudden improve and got to play. But then, of course, you had those that would just, would quit and transfer. But that my dad always, that was one of the things, make everything competitive, keep track. But it's good for yourself knowing as a coach, who can play and who's performing. And because anybody can look good in a drill, a one-on-one drill, 2-on. But that's why my dad always said, keep stats when it's 4-on-4, 5-on-5, doing all the realistic stuff, because that's how you can tell if a kid can really play.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I've always said if you want the most out of, especially guys, just keep score somehow.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, everybody's paying attention. So
exactly.
That's just the way we're wired. November 1st, you go down to Assembly Hall. It's something you've been able to do in your coaching career before start there. But how special is that to start the season there?
Oh, it's great. Because actually I haven't been to a game there since we got fired.
Wow.
So we went back, when we got my dad to go back, but we weren't at the game. We were actually back in the practice facility hanging out. So this will be my first time at a game at Indiana since I was assistant coach. And so it'll be special. It's a special place. The fans are great. Mike Woodson, one of my dad's all-time favorites, one of my favorites. the head coach. But for my kids, though, I mean, that's history. I mean, that's one of the top places to play
Oh,
in all college
absolutely.
basketball.
And you got a ton of
And so,
Indiana guys, and yeah,
oh,
there's
yeah.
there's
So
nothing better than going to Assembly Hall, right?
no, and for them to go down there to just experience that, it's going to be special. And I think it's something we can keep going. Scott Dolson, AD, used to babysit me. So, and with Steve Downing and I both up at Marian, hopefully, we can keep that exhibition going. But to me, it's a great experience for me, my staff, my kids, our fans. We'll have a lot of fans there. I mean, God, we had one family member wanted to buy 100 tickets. We're like, we don't control the tickets. You need to call IU to buy those tickets. We only get a certain amount for the players and everybody. But yeah, call it. But so yeah, it'll be exciting, and just to get the kids down there and just experience that whole atmosphere. So yeah, we're really looking forward to that.
So on that subject, last question, and then I'll let you go. So you grew up in Indiana. You played down at Bloomington High School. And then you played for your dad, the Hoosiers, in the early 90s, and that was one of the program's most successful periods while you were there playing. How many? Go ahead.
It wasn't because of me, but yeah, it was.
But how many contacts? You're talking about some of your contacts. How many contacts do you still have with those guys you played with?
All of them. Some. I hear from more times than not, but yeah, we were close. That's what's great about playing for a demanding coach. It makes the team closer, because it's so hard to play every day. I mean, we had to give her all. There was no off days. And what was great playing for my dad, he was on everybody, not just the number one guy.
I just can't imagine that. I can't even imagine that.
Oh, the 13th guy. So he was on all of us just to get better. And it wasn't just basketball, just become better human beings. I mean,
right.
he was on us for the studies, but it brings you to closer together. And then, I learned some stuff when I kind of got to peek behind the curtain. It's like the Wizard of Oz when I worked for him. And, a lot of the stuff was planned, motivational, just to get the most out of guys. And, but he was really good. He let us have, and I do the same thing. Like, I had a recruit yesterday. I was like, look, I don't come to your dorm or apartment or house, wherever you live, and I don't come into the locker room. Those are your guys' place. And my dad always talked to me. He's like, hey, I know they're talking about us. I probably pissed them off and they don't like me. So they need a place to vent. And he was like, I want them to feel that they have that security in the locker room and where they live, that they can be kids, they can be college students. They don't have to worry about me showing up, but it gives them a place, to vent about the coaches or just have fun. And so it's kind of interesting because honestly, when we talked about when I was working for him, I started thinking about it. Yeah, even I was his son. He never came to my place, never came to my apartment or house. Locker room, he only came in the locker room like during games or right before practice. Let's go do this. I mean, and we felt like that was our, little clubhouse. We could do and have fun and cut up and say things that, wouldn't get out as, within the group. And then we felt that wherever we lived, that was ours. There was not, we didn't have to like peek around the corner or the coaches outside or whatever. And so it's kind of interesting. I didn't think about it till I started working for him. And he would tell recruits that. And I do the same thing. I told a recruit yesterday, and his family. I was like, hey, those are your places. If I want to see you, I was like, I'll have you come out to my house. I'll have you come to the office. I'll see you in the gym. But you've got to have that. Yeah, you're a basketball player, but you also got to have a life. And it's funny looking back at it. My dad, we actually had a life outside of basketball. Yeah. He left us alone. But boy, and plus, trust me, he didn't want to get that call. He wanted to see you in the office. That was that meant you either screwed up mainly in class, because the basketball part, he'd get you, in the coach's locker room. But yeah, that call coming to the office, it usually meant you got caught skipping class or you weren't doing well in a subject.
How bad was that fishbowl when you were playing for him, for all the guys, but you in particular, right, being Pat Knight, but for just to play there?
I mean, it's intense, but it's fun. I mean, it's kind of like, honestly, and there's not that many places you can go to where it'd be like that, but you're a rock star. I mean, but then you gotta be careful because everybody knows you, everybody sees you. But I mean, it's fun. I mean, and we laugh now. Thank God They didn't have cell phones back then.
Oh,
I'm
cell
sure
phone video, yeah.
So I think it's probably changed for the poor kids now down in Indiana or say the Duke or North Carolina but
Yeah.
I think if you talk to all the older guys like myself and before me, it was fun. Yes, you had the fishbowl, but that's what big time college athletics is like. It's like being a rock star. I mean, and when you're winning, the fans, I mean, it is fun, but it's a lot of work. I mean, that's what the people don't understand. And every team I've had, that these teams aren't good just because they're good. I mean, it is hard work. And that was one thing. As much fun as we had, we never let anything off the court come between us and winning games. And we policed each other, right, you know. And it's kind of funny. Joe Hillman came down to check on my dad before he passed. And we were talking about, you know, everyone talks about, well, you know, guys transferred, guys. And Joe had the greatest comment. He's like, yeah, but no one realized we didn't want those guys that transferred because they couldn't hack it. They weren't like us. Yep. And they never asked us, like, were we upset that, you know, so-and-so transferred? And Joe's like, that's what people don't understand. We were wired different. And that comes to recruiting. You got to get that certain guy for that, you know, certain coach. And there are just some guys that just weren't meant to play for my dad. I mean, there's some guys that weren't meant to play for Coach Saban. Mm-hmm. But those of us that were wired to play that way, you couldn't find better coaches than those guys.
You know, Coach, hopefully after the season gets going and you get into that Crossroads League, we can get you on one or two times, just talk about where you're at in the conference, what your thoughts are on NAI and Crossroads basketball. I think that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, call me anytime. I'm looking forward to great coaches, great players. And that's why I wasn't going to come back to some, no offense, crappy league. You know, I wanted to be challenged. And, you know, to me, it's like going back to the Big 12 or the Big 10. You know, it's probably, if not the Premier League, one of the premier leagues, the NAIA. So I'm really looking forward to going against these coaches and great players at all these other schools. It's going to be, you know, people are like, well, it's tough. You know, I'm coming from a different situation. Tough is watching your dad die from Alzheimer's. That's
absolutely,
tough.
Absolutely.
This is fun for me. This is fun. Being in a great league, going against great coaches, this is fun. And so I'm kind of different than these younger guys and stuff. I don't look at it as tough. I've been through tough. This is fun. And I just love trying to figure out, you know, anybody that's competitive, you just love trying to figure out how to beat somebody.
Well, you'll definitely get your competitive juices flowing there in the Crossroads, because every night's a war. You already heard that. You know that, right?
Oh, yeah, it's going to be great. I mean, you can't take a night off. But I think if you're competitive, that's what you want. Why would you want to go somewhere where you know you're going to win every night, or, you know, or have, you know how it is in some, you know, there's always those teams you can check, but not in this league, man. I mean, this league is the real deal. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. And that's what I wanted. There was no way I was going to go to some place where it was going to be easy. You know, I wanted to go. And this league is so respected. Everyone knows in the Midwest about the Crossroads League.
Exactly.
And it's awesome. And it's just going to get better. But, yeah, I'm really looking forward to great coaches, great players, and I just think it's going to get better. But it's kind of interesting now. Everybody's kind of noticing us. The Division I's are starting to snoop around. And I know some coaches don't like that, but I think it's great. This shows how good a job these coaches have done and how hard these players have worked if they have a chance to move on from our league.
Well, Coach, welcome to the NAIA. Welcome to the Crossroads. I can't wait for basketball to get started. Want to see how your Marian Knights can do. Actually, I'm looking forward to all 250 teams getting going, to tell you the truth. But I can't wait for basketball to start.
Yeah, no, and I'm a football guy, so that I'm having fun right now. But yeah, I'm like you. It will be great when the games start going, because, you know, I love practice. Don't get me wrong, but there's nothing better than a real game.
Yeah, stuff that court, get it loud. Yep, exactly.
And that's the only way you can figure out about yourself, really. You know, if you win or get beat, that's the only way. And we can scrimmage as much as you want, but you really don't find out about your team until the lights come on and it counts.
Well, Coach, thank you for the time. I appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Again, there's a lot of other things I wanted to talk about we just couldn't get to, but hopefully we can talk more after the season gets going.
All right, buddy. Hey, text me your address, and I'll send you some Marian Knights gear.
Okay. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. That's Pat Knight.
All right, buddy.
He's the head men's basketball coach, Marian Knights. Thank you, Coach. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the show. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Also, please like and subscribe this show wherever you watch or listen to it. It helps a lot. And if you have a question you'd like answered on the show, just send me a note at cascadehoopstalk@gmail.com or just shoot me a DM on Twitter. I hope you enjoyed the show. Enjoy your day. We'll see you next time. Yours truly, Billy D. Thank you very much for supporting our podcast. Please like and subscribe. Get out to your local NAIA school because NAIA basketball is the best entertainment value in America.